Hello, everybody, and thank you for checking out the Dancing Eyes Podcast, episode 17. Today, my guest is Chris. Chris is a sports director at a radio station, and he does play-by-play for college and high school sports. He is also a professor for an introduction to sports broadcasting class, and among all of these things, he is also a father. This episode of the Dancing Eyes Podcast is sponsored by the American Nystagmus Network. ANN works to improve the quality of life for all persons and families affected by nystagmus through organized community, support, education, public awareness, and research. A link to their website will be available in the description. If you guys are interested in watching little clips that I post of the podcast, make sure to follow the Instagram. I have a link to that in the description as well. If you're watching this episode on YouTube and you haven't done so already, please hit that like and subscribe button. I really appreciate it. Also, leave me a comment. Let me know what you think. Lastly, new episodes will be out on the first and third Monday of every month, so make sure to keep your eyes out for those. And with all that being said, I hope everyone listening enjoys and gets something from this episode, and let's get on to the show. All right, here we go. What's up, Chris? How you doing, man?
Hey, Frankie, how you doing?
I'm doing well. So you reached out to me via email. So here we are, and you have I think among one of the cooler careers of the people that I've spoken to so far. So you commentate for sports.
Yeah, my official position, I'm the sports director at a commercial radio station in northern New York. I produce a morning sportscast from home at 5 in the morning, Monday through Friday, and it gets aired by 6 o'clock, airs 6 times during the morning. So a lot of we're early mornings. Plus, I got to get my kids on the bus. They get on the bus at 6:45 in the morning. So I'm up, a lot before a lot of people. So I do that, and I do play for a lot of local high school and college sports. During the fall, it's soccer and football, and I also do play for a Division III NCAA football team where I live. College hockey, high school basketball in the winter, and then baseball, softball, and lacrosse on the radio throughout the year. So I'm busy for 10 months throughout the year.
That's all of the sports, Chris.
All of them. I've done track and field updates before. I worked for an internet company way back when they did volleyball. I did like 4 volleyball games. Never again. There's too many stats to keep track of because I like to keep stats, my own handwritten notes. There's blocks, kills, sets, whatever they call it, and it's thank goodness they have computers to keep track of that now. So
those are too many statistics for me.
Yes, very, very, very much. And I tried to do my own cheat sheet. It didn't work after like 3 serves. It was like, okay, I threw it in the garbage. Didn't quite work at all. So, but yeah, so I do play. I've done podcasting a little bit during COVID. I did when there's no sports going on in New York State. I did a weekly podcast for about a year. Actually, when podcasts weren't a thing, I was doing podcasts for a local college station, not college station, but a college sports I was covering for college basketball and college hockey. And I did it only to get free shirts from a company from downtown, and it worked out. This was back in probably 2003, 2004. So even when podcasts were a thing, I was doing a podcast on our website, which is what the heck is that?
Jesus.
A little podcast. And
you're an OG.
I know. So I'm not adding anything regular, but when the moment comes, I've done little things. Plus, like for a year, I did a podcast for the college football team that I did for 1 season, but it just got to be too much to do because I have other responsibilities. I sell radio advertising. I produce a report in the morning. Sometimes I'm the backup morning host on our FM station. And there's a lot of grunt work that goes on with that. So it turns out to be a long day from 5 in the morning to 5 at night a lot of times. Just consistent flow of stuff to do.
What do you look forward to the most out of all of that stuff?
Going to big games like sectional playoff games, going to state games. I've covered a couple state championship games. I freelanced for New York State as well, doing play-by-play for the state basketball championships, which are held in Glens Falls, New York, which is just north of Albany. 8,000-seat arena. I was doing, I think, internet only for that. And then I would do radio for my local teams and then do what they call now the highest classification in New York State is AA, which is the big schools. So I was doing the high school, like schools with like 2,000, 3,000 kids in a class. So it's like a lot of Division I, Division III players in the big school championships. So that was pretty fun. Freelance for the high school hockey championships. I've done some audio, video feeds for our local teams up here for sectional play as well. So I'm doing it for the last 21 years up here, actually doing play-by-play for sports, along with the 3 years I did in college. I've been doing play-by-play for almost 25 years now, from a local sports standpoint. I did cover a Division I women's Frozen Four women's hockey in Connecticut a few years ago. So that's kind of the highest point I've been so far in my career covering something.
Oh, that's sick. Have you ever commentated for a football game and one of the players goes on to become an NFL player?
Yes. Matter of fact, if you remember Brian Leonard, who played at Rutgers and played for mostly the Cincinnati Bengals. I started with the St. Louis Rams. My first year broadcasting high school football, he was a senior at a local high school. He set about 8 New York State records with points in a game, touchdowns in a game, and went to Rutgers University. Now he's on the Mount Rushmore of Rutgers University football. Over 125 years. He's probably the third or fourth most recognizable player ever in Rutgers history.
Is he a QB? What does he play?
Fullback. He was a fullback.
Fullback, okay.
He was actually in the running for the Heisman his senior year, but then Ray Rice came in, kind of took a step back in a role, but the Rutgers ended up almost winning when they're at the time in the Big East at the time. So Brian Leonard, he has a camp in a local town that I live in every year. He comes in. So he had a 7-year career. He ended with the Saints, played one game, made $64,000 for one game, and then retired. He's got his pension. He mostly played for the Cincinnati Bengals. He was the fullback. He was like the third down back. Every time he touched the ball, he could get a first down for them. So, but Brian Leonard is one NFL player I've seen. The other one is Trevor Scott. You may not have heard of him. He ended up going to the University of Buffalo and got drafted by the then Oakland Raiders. He was a starting defensive end for the Oakland Raiders for 4 years. And then wandered the last 3 years with New England and Chicago. But he got his 4 years, got his pension, really, really big time. Then they actually played against each other in high school too, so that was pretty neat for 1 year. But at the time, Trevor Scott was a tight end in a 3 downs and a cloud of dust offense, so he didn't get the ball very much. But when he went to college, he bulked up a little. They put him on defense. He went to college recruited as a tight end in a mid-major Division I at University of Buffalo. And then bulked up a little bit. They put him to defensive end, became an all-MAC player, and then got drafted in the 6th round by the Oakland Raiders.
Oh, wow.
So every time I go to the local high school where he went, there's his Oakland Raiders number 91 jersey right there across from the high school gym.
Oh, that's sick. Yeah, so he goes there as a tight end, bulks up, goes over to defensive end. That's interesting.
Yep.
Go ahead.
And come from a MAC school like that, too, where they may get 1 or 2 a year. It was a pretty big deal. His coach was Turner Gill, who was a big-time guy at Nebraska back in the 70s and 80s. So he kind of turned that Buffalo program around. He was one of the key cogs. Same thing with Brian Leonard. Greg Schiano was the coach that brought Brian Leonard from northern New York to New Jersey, and he ends up turning around that Rutgers program to national prominence and almost winning the Big East title and all that. So he was a main contributor for that.
Okay. You see, yeah, I know a lot of NFL, but I know almost nothing about college. So I'm always like,
me neither.
Just trying to figure it out.
So,
yeah.
I'm working a lot during Saturdays, so I don't get to watch a lot of Division I college football, and it doesn't really interest me all that well. To me, it's kind of the old school, good old boy network. It's the same 4 teams every year: Alabama, Clemson.
Georgia, right?
Else Georgia, exactly. So you're down in Georgia. You probably hear it all the time. So it's or Atlanta's kind of Georgia Tech country down there, from my understanding.
No, dude, the people down here. I was in Atlanta and I was at a bar watching Georgia versus Alabama. Seriously, 75% Alabama fans, 25% Georgia fans.
Really?
So, yeah. Okay. Explain that to me. I don't understand.
Well, Georgia had a little lull for years. They're back. Georgia Tech hasn't been good in a while either, I guess. So, but the ACC's ACC's really a basketball conference anyway. I mean,
yeah,
football's kind of it's SEC really. Big Ten, Big Ten's decent basketball, but Big Ten's really, and now there's so much shuffling amongst the teams. I mean, Maryland now is in the Big Ten, Rutgers in the Big Ten. You can't keep track of all these colleges where they're going because they're going after the television money. They think they're going to get into a big conference and get all the television money. That's what it is. It's all money. So
which one is Boulder in?
Boulder?
Yeah.
Or you mean Baylor or
No,
Colorado?
Colorado. Yeah, the shit. What's the name? They got the. I don't know. I went to a Colorado game, and so they play in
Okay,
Boulder. That's why I call them
They're
Boulder.
in Boulder. Yeah, Colorado University's in Boulder, Colorado.
Yeah, yeah. So I went to a Colorado basketball game, and they played.
Okay.
And that was a fun. That's the only college basketball game that I've ever been to, but it was super fun.
Yeah.
A really fun time.
Yep. I live. We live pretty close to Syracuse. I've never been to a Syracuse game before. I've been to the Carrier Dome. Though one Division I hockey trip I hired as a freelancer about 10, 11 years ago to travel with the Division I hockey team to Denver, Colorado for a New Year's Eve tournament.
Oh, that must have been
And
sick.
the Denver University is a pretty prominent Division I hockey program, and they play in the same arena as the Division I basketball team, which isn't very good. But the day before we were to play, ended up stumbling into an Arkansas State Denver Big Sky Conference game. And it was this. I mean, this is like below mid-major stuff, so it's pretty neat. It's kind of and right there on floor level, seeing Division I basketball game is pretty neat too. And then right before, like once that game was done, they had to tear up the wood for the basketball game, and the ice was underneath, and they had to get ready for the hockey game the next day.
So when I go to sporting events, I love sports so much, but the most frustrating thing about sporting events for me is that I can't really see anything. So how do you attack that?
Well, I don't go to a lot of big venues. I haven't been to a Major League Baseball game in a while, and actually, I live pretty close to Montreal. So when the Expos used to be in Montreal, I used to go to Canada a lot, and used to get the seats literally with exchange rate was like $20 box seats behind home plate, so you could go really cheap to an Expo game and nobody was there. I've been to a few hockey games like Upper Deck in Montreal where the Canadians play. You can see pretty much a lot Upper Deck.
Hmm.
But I've never been in a 80, 70, 80,000 seat stadium before. I've just been into maybe 15, 20,000 seat stadiums where the Upper Deck you can see everything. Colors are bright, lighting's very good. So I never experienced the vision issues with that, and maybe something with signs if I had to read a sign or whatever. But if I'm going to a big game like that, I'm not broadcasting it, so I don't. There's no pressure for me to see the numbers, and for me, seeing the numbers is okay. Seeing the last names, no way. So it's always going by the number on the jersey instead of the letters. Numbers are easier to read from a distance than numbers.
Right, and then you can memorize the last names, right? Like you could put the last
Yes,
names with the numbers. Yeah.
exactly. That's what I do when I broadcast. You get like in hockey, you get a line chart. You get four forward lines with three each, and then three defense pairings. So you kind of know, okay, if 10 and 11 and 12 are on one line, and you see 10, 11 in the ice, well, the other guy has to be 12 unless the coach changed it. So kind of in your mind as you go on process of elimination, you're doing play-by-play, especially for a game like hockey. Basketball's a little easier because usually four level, five guys on each side, pretty easy.
Hmm.
Always have a cheat sheet in front of you and a score sheet. Football can get a little tricky. You have 99 guys on a roster, but they give you rosters called two deep. So you have the first unit and the second unit. So you kind of memorize who the first unit is, kind of memorize who the quarterback, the wide receivers, and the running backs are on offense. And that's pretty much all you need to do. Once in a great while, you throw in the linemen. On defense, you try to get, because the utter chaos, try to get the first person that made a tackle on defense. Some guys make 10, 11 tackles. Eventually, you're going to remember his number and name.
Right.
So that helps out a lot. So it's a lot of memorization, a lot of preparation. I usually do about an hour and a half prep before I do a game, at least for a football game. Basketball, a little less. Hockey, probably about an hour. Baseball, you're pretty much doing your prep when you get there because you don't know the lineups till you get there. So you're writing down the lineups and the positions and all that stuff. If you know something about the teams, you can talk about them a little bit. But other than that, it's a lot of preparation, a lot of preparing. And I know when I do a football game, especially, I just got to know. The biggest thing is know where, like for me, because I'm going to different stadiums all the time, knowing where the play clock is, because the play clock's at different positions in every stadium. Know where the scoreboard is, because the scoreboard is in different positions. So you can move your head and glance a little bit and know where position your head and your eyes. So you need the reference of how much time's left. You know where it is in an instant. And on the radio, they can't tell. They can't tell if you're moving your head or upside down,
Right.
or if your hair's green or whatever. So it's.
So you're doing play-by-play, right?
I do play. Yes. Yep. I do a little color commentary. I do have some people that work with me, but Usually I'm mostly a one-man show until we get to the playoffs, and then I have somebody help me out a little bit, and I'm trying to get more people involved as well because can't be doing this forever. I wish I could, but it's nice to get a lot of help so I can sell some other games and other people get the experience that I've had the last 21 years.
Commentating games sounds like so much fun. That's something I would want to do. That
Mm-hmm.
opportunity. How do you get into something like that?
Well, I went to college as a communications major, and I got involved with my college radio station right off the bat in the news and sports department, read newscasts and sportscasts. Then I tried out for the play-by-play job for hockey, got that, and was play-by-play for my college for 3 years. Then my senior year, they won the national championship. However, I didn't go to that game because I was on spring break and decided to go with my roommate to Long Island to hang out with them. Never been to New York City before, so I hung out in New York City. So they did that instead of going to the national championship. They ended up winning the national championship. That was pretty fun. They were a pretty good team back then.
Mm-hmm.
And then I got involved with basketball, and I didn't know much about basketball until I went to college. I didn't know about 1-and-1s and 7 fouls, you get shot and all that. So kind of learned basketball while I was in college. And my college didn't have, I think I did one soccer game. I let other people do it, but I kind of oversaw it. There's 2 people in my department that knew more about soccer than I did. So you want to do a soccer game, go right ahead. So during alumni weekend, everybody was happy. So I didn't get to do soccer until when I started my commercial career. But my college didn't have baseball at the time, so they just started softball. So I started doing softball games, college softball games for a little bit. Then eventually when I got to my commercial station, I learned soccer and I learned lacrosse. And I knew nothing about lacrosse either. So I learned it from a baseball guy too. So just kind of the generic stuff. Every year the rules change. And like men's lacrosse, boys lacrosse, and girls lacrosse too. Which, if you've ever seen women's or girls lacrosse, nobody knows the rules. It's totally ridiculous. And a matter of fact, one rule back in the day, about 20 years ago, technically in girls lacrosse, there was no out of bounds. So you could like start a game in Atlanta and be in Tallahassee and still be in bounds. I guess it was just a mere suggestion. But
Oh
now
my
there's an out
god.
of bounds, a little more structure, a shot clock. The Division One game is pretty exciting, but I get to, like, do some lower level high school lacrosse, and it's kind of slow paced. They kind of milk the clock. Before there was no shot clock, so a team could get up 7-8 goals by halftime and just hold on to the ball for 25 minutes till the end of the game. So now they kind of
I don't
frown
understand
on
how
that a
you
little
have a
bit.
sport like that and not have simple rules like no shot clock
Well,
or no out of
it's the
bounds.
evolution. It's the evolution when teams are failing these strategies and they build rules to make the game a little more pleasant to watch. Now men's lacrosse has a 90-second shot clock, which never did, because in men's lacrosse, you used to get up by 4 or 5 goals in the fourth quarter, and they just hold the ball for 7 minutes. They just pass it around. It was just like, it was ridiculous. You knew what they were doing. But now they have a 90-second shot clock in men's lacrosse. If it hits the post, I think it resets to 60.
I feel like in
If it
something
goes
like
out of
that, though, you
bounds,
could look at other sports, though. Look at something like
yep.
basketball, and then take
Mm-hmm.
their shot clock rule, and then just be like, well, if
Oh,
they're up by 5 points, they're
yeah,
gonna.
the shot clock saved that sport back in the 50s. It literally saved the sport because they're starting to get games like 10 or the 60-minute games are like 10-8 because people just holding on to the ball all the time.
Really?
You know, and they didn't have a shot clock in college basketball for years. And I can't imagine. You know, why would you want to shoot the ball when you get a lead? Why would you want to give up the ball and shoot the ball all the time? And there was no 3-point line either. So I think basketball's gotten a lot better with the rule change. That's the one sport that is more. I watch an old basketball game from the 70s and 80s, and there's no shot clock. How can that be? I mean, I'd get a lead and kind of milk the clock for 10 minutes, not let the other team have the ball.
Yeah.
So, but I guess it's shoot. I guess, and when the 3-point line really encouraged basketball players to shoot, and I think it's brought basketball to another level, especially when it came about in the college game in the mid 80s. And it's much better. Basketball's, and I'm not a big NBA. I haven't watched an NBA game in 25 years. I'll watch some college, but I like watching high school basketball a lot more than anything. So I think it's more of a natural. It's more, the game is more natural when it comes to it. It's not a lot of dunking. It's not above the rim.
Right.
So, and then you get, so like high school girls basketball is pretty fun. We get 2 high-level girls basketball games, and they're pretty intense too. So they're fun to watch.
Yeah, something about basketball can get really intense. Basketball
Yep.
gets intense. Dude, NFL playoff games are my favorite thing to watch.
And in basketball, it's funny because now they have the kind of the Dean Smith way where you intentionally foul at games to try to get back into a game. you could have 18 seconds on the clock. It takes 10 minutes of real time to play the last 18 seconds of a basketball game because they're fouling each other every time.
Yeah.
So it's that's what frustrates a lot of people about that, but that's the way it kind of progressed over the last 30 years. They stay in the game. You intentionally foul, and then you get your free throws to stop the clock.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of a workaround against the rules, but it's been accepted in the sport. It's what everybody does. Yep. And in the NFL, obviously, the last 2 minutes of a game can take 30 minutes easily. It happens all the time. Mm-hmm. So
yeah.
Did you watch that game last year? Buffalo versus Kansas City.
Yes.
Championship or divisional round.
Left too many seconds on the clock.
I felt so bad for Josh Allen, man. He had that game won with 13 seconds left, and the Mahomes came down the field and got them that field goal.
And Aaron Rodgers probably could have done it in 8 seconds. He does it all the time.
I can't stand Aaron Rodgers. I can't stand Green Bay. Green Bay has ruined as a Cowboys fan, they've ruined my season too many times. Well,
you had the divisional game with the pass that was incomplete. And then
Des Bryant caught it, but whatever.
Yep. That was the best team they had. And that was when Tony Romo was actually healthy for a full season. So
very rare.
Yeah, I mean, he must not get up very well in the morning. He has a bright smile on his face every time, but he's had his spleen. I know he's had both rib cages broken.
The rib cages. He's had herniated discs in his back multiple times.
Didn't he get a spleen? Didn't he get a spleen severed or something too, or something stupid like that?
I don't know.
But I know the rib cages were the big thing. His shoulders, the rib cages. I mean,
he's had everything.
I don't want to. Debate how many painkillers he takes, but I'm sure he gets up a little gingerly in the morning, even in his retirement. So
I'm happy that he's commentating now. He's such a good. Now he finally gets the respect of his peers, because everybody was always talking mad crap about Tony Romo.
Well, he was over, and I know this from a broadcasting standpoint. Being in a booth, he's trying to. I don't think he really meant to. He's kind of over talking Jim Nantz, and now Jim Nantz is kind of adjusted to his style a little bit. It bugs people that he starts predicting plays, and he's 100% right. He reads the defense, and he's playing out there. So
it's so fun.
And then when he kind of focuses and calms down, he's really good. He has those moments where he gets really excited. He starts talking too fast, and he talks right over Jim Nantz. But I think they've gotten a lot better over the years. And that's one thing I try to teach a little bit in broadcasting. Let the play-by-play guy finish his thought. Then you can start talking. In football, especially in football, it is such driven by the color commentator, not the play-by-play guy. And I do football by myself. I haven't had a color guy in a couple of years. You can do football by yourself. You got to kind of limit the color commentary and talk about what's going on the field. But especially in radio, television especially. Television is geared towards the color commentator. John Madden, Tony Romo, Phil Simms, whoever it is. Mm-hmm. And the play-by-play guy's just there to kind of drive the bus a little bit, and
keeps it going forward, Yeah.
Yeah, but you get some of the good play-by-play guys that know when to talk, know their moments. You don't interrupt the play-by-play guy's moment. Where I think in the early on, Tony Romo would integrate a little bit here and there a little too much, but I think he's learned. I'm sure he gets coached by the people at CBS and other people how to improve.
Certainly.
I can tell some improvement into when he can interject, when he can't interject. And it's been like this for years. They give the color commentators of football their little segments in the beginning a little bit, kind of get all their thoughts out of their mind. Tony must have 20 million thoughts, and I'm sure there's probably 80 out of 100 pages of notes he doesn't use during a game, because you always have to over prepare for stuff.
Yeah.
So he wants to try to get all that 100 pages in the broadcast. You just can't do it. You got to let the game breathe a little bit. That's why you got to let it breathe a little bit. Let it develop, have it organically come about.
That's the thing about Romo. It's like there's something about his commentary that's so organic, and he's so passionate about the sport, and you just don't see that in everybody. And I think that's a big issue in commentary. There's a lot of bad commentary for NFL nowadays, especially those early Sunday 1 p.m. games. There's a lot of bad commentary, man.
Well, they stick the C crew going over to England for the Jacksonville, Jets games. So and I'm afraid, and I think the NFL is regretting the Thursday night football package. I think it's gone way too diluted. 1 o'clock and 4 o'clock, people can set their schedules, their lives around 1 o'clock or 4 o'clock on a Sunday. Sunday night's become the biggest thing. Monday night means absolutely nothing. I don't care what ESPN says. It means absolutely nothing these days because they get crap games.
They're not fun.
And Thursday night's just too much. I don't even, unless the Cowboys are playing, I don't bother with the Thursday night game at all. Really, it's and Monday night especially. I watch football on one day and that's it. It almost gets too much. Can't get enough of playoffs on weekends,
Right.
but and they're regretting it. They're not getting the ratings, and none of the networks want it. That's why it's on Amazon Prime this year.
Which
none of
one's
the
on
networks want to
Prime?
deal with it. Thursday Night Football, I
Yeah,
believe, or yeah. So
I believe it.
It's exclusive, and if they want to go with a streaming service, that's fine. On Thursday night, I think that works because none of the networks want anything to do with it because it takes up their Thursday night lineup of whatever shows or dramas they want to produce. I mean, it may make big money from an advertising standpoint, but I think football is a cash cow. But if they dilute it, it may become less of a cash cow for the networks. And there's always a fear, probably 10, 50 years ago, that NFL football is going to go completely away from the networks and do pay-per-view status. Well, the networks keep dishing out the billions of dollars to have it over the air. So as long as that happens, that's why the NFL is so popular, is because regular people that have regular cable or even still over-the-air rabbit ears and still get NFL football on Sundays, where the other sports, you got to get streaming services and other ways or internet to get out-of-market games. With the NFL, you can, in a direct ticket, too, you can watch any game you want.
Right.
Or even the Red Zone for the gamblers out there.
Yeah,
the red zone is you go watch every single. That's for gamblers. It's not really for football fans. I like to watch a football game and start to finish and kind of the strategy. That red zone's just for gambling.
Red Zone channel is for gambling and for fantasy football.
Yes, it's all
fantasy
it is.
football is gambling essentially.
I get it the first free week, and that's it. I don't even bother with it. I like watching a full game from start to finish, even if the Cowboys aren't on. Depending if it's a good game, whatever's on 1 o'clock, I'll watch something. Whatever on 4 o'clock, I'll watch something. Sunday night, I may get a little burned out. Okay,
but here's the one thing about Red Zone channel is Red Zone channel. There's no commercials, so you don't got to deal with all that stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah,
they do commercials a little bit when they have to throw in, or they do don't they slide in?
They'll do
commercials, drop-ins,
like a picture-in-picture or something. They'll do one little commercial once in a while, but it's not like if you're watching a full Cowboys game where you're getting these commercials after every kickoff or after every timeout or injury timeouts. Yep. That's what I like about the Red Zone channel. But dude, if I could watch an NFL game, no commercials, and just watch it all the way through, I would pick that over Red Zone channel. I stopped doing fantasy football. I can't do it anymore. It's too stressful. So
I maybe did it 20 years ago. I was in pools while I was in high school. The gambling part doesn't really. I'm more of a video game person than anything. I'll throw in Madden here and there a little bit. Other than that, I have a couple NES and Sega Genesis emulators on my laptop where I can play old games for free and download them.
Mm-hmm.
So I know there's one website that you can download, like the NHL 94 platform, but they update it every year with their current rosters and teams.
That's cool.
So you can play like the NHL 94 game, but they're the 2002 rosters. It's pretty neat. They've done it with football too, with Madden, for like Madden 98, 7, 98. Some basketball, some baseball, but the hockey is the most fun. And someone's gone as far as doing like the KHL, the Russian Hockey League, the East Coast Hockey League, American Hockey League, and done all those ROM hacks with the NHL 94 platform. It's crazy. So,
yeah, only video game I ever got into was Madden, and this game called Rocket League, where it's pretty much soccer but with bombs. And you gotta like hit the ball into the Rocket League.
FIFA is really fun on the PlayStation. The modern soccer games are really fun. And what I liked, I got the last one where it had like the women's teams. So I was playing the women's World Cup all the time. The USA and Canada. I like playing Team Canada a lot, but and now the latest NHL 22 game has the women's Olympic hockey teams, which is pretty neat.
Yeah.
So,
See, right now I don't even have the Xbox anymore. I left it down in Florida because I spent too much time on it. I was like, I don't want to be on there anymore, so I just left it.
Right.
Madden was just Madden, man. Ultimate Team. So I played a lot of Ultimate Team, and I got hooked onto it. That's where you can buy and sell players on the auction block, and then.
Okay. Right.
Dude, I didn't even really play Madden I didn't really play the game of football anymore. All I did was I just played the auction block, and then I started a team from like worth 0 coins to millions of coins. And that was my whole entertainment.
One of one of my favorite games I like to play, and I still do here and there. I still have an old PS2 Slim version in my bedroom, and when I get in the mood, I like playing College Hoops 2K5 because they don't make college sports games as of now anymore because of the license agreement since 2010. But ESPN College Hoops 2K5, I think, is one of the best college basketball games out there. The EA Sports 2010, the last one they made, with I think Blake Griffin on the cover, is a pretty good one. But I like the 2K5 one. It plays easy. You have Mike Patrick and Jay Billis as the commentators. The graphics are pretty good for 17 years old. It's pretty darn good. You get every single NCAA team. You can play Youngstown State versus Arkansas State if you wanted to. So I like playing mid-major games just because it's different, seeing all the different gyms and all that.
So how does the nystagmus affect your career? Does it affect it at all?
It does. Primarily, the biggest thing is I do not have a driver's license, cannot get a driver's license. My vision is where I can't pass the driver's test. I'm both nearsighted and farsighted, so that doesn't help either.
Nice.
So I'm 2,400 out of my right eye, so I'm left eye dominant. But my glasses get me to about 2060, 2070, where I can pretty much do my job close range. When I'm covering football, you have binoculars or field glasses help me out from long distance, and also lacrosse games and soccer games because a lot of them are on football fields anyway too. So, but for hockey and basketball, as long as I see the numbers, I'm fine. Memorization helps out a little bit. But the biggest thing is getting to and from work because I can't drive and I live out in the middle of the woods. As you see, there's a lot of woods behind me.
Yeah.
So my wife moved me out here while I was living in town. She had a place out here and we were going out, and then I've stayed out here. So just to get kind of a bit of perspective, the nearest grocery store is probably 9 miles away.
You really are in the middle of nowhere back there.
Yes, it's the foothills of the Adirondacks. So it's 9 miles from the nearest grocery store either way. My office is about 8 miles away, probably maybe about 8-9 miles away. So public transportation has gotten a lot better over the 20 years. Matter of fact, there was a bus service that would go to the end of my road, a quarter mile down. But when COVID hit, they ran out of ridership and shut it down. Just that route where I live. Everywhere else, I could get to anywhere else in the county, but I can't get it from my house to work anymore. So, but now they're using the excuse the State Department, the DOT wants to have the route back, but they don't have drivers now to drive it. So, so you got to figure out certain ways here and there. My wife's schedule, for her work in retail, we'll go into work together 3 days a week, and then she's off 2 days a week during the week. I either get a ride with her, or they have a program where this supplements where the bus line stopped. They call it first mile, last mile program, where if the bus can get you to a certain point, they'll have a volunteer driver drive you to your destination.
Well, that's cool.
So I've been able to utilize that, but they need more volunteer drivers to do that around the county. So these volunteer drivers not only helping me out, but they're helping bring kids to see their dads because their mom lives somewhere else, and so and helped out the Department of Social Services in those situations too. So then they made certain rules. You have to you couldn't be. Now during COVID, I was considered essential because I was working in the media, so I was getting rides to and from everywhere I was going. Well, then they cracked down the rules a little bit, saying, well, now you can only get a free first mile, last mile ride from a bus stop to your destination. So if I was at a school covering a game, I have to walk to a bus stop to pick up the first mile, last mile driver because they wouldn't be able to go to the school to pick me up anymore. So that's been kind of a little bit of a concern, just to kind of for scheduling and trying to figure out how I was going to get home. Mostly I can get the games pretty much on my own. My company pays for a $60 yearly bus ticket. It's $2 one way for the bus in this county. So they've been able to help me out in that regard. The biggest thing is getting home after my work is done. That's always been the biggest concern. Getting to work is fine. Getting to where I have to go, so I do a game, is fine. It's the matter of getting home. Now, there are Ubers available up here, yes, in rural part of New York State where I am, but usually only on weekends. I mean, we have the colleges to help out a little bit, but I can usually probably get an Uber on a Friday night, Saturday night, which helps out a little bit. But during the week, like on a Tuesday, no way, because the college kids are all gone and the place is dead. So, and the taxi services have gone completely non-existent too. There isn't much taxi service where The buses kind of supplement that a little bit in the first mile, where the private taxi companies have either cut their hours or don't even do a lot of local drives anymore.
Yeah, I think Ubers have kind of replaced taxis a lot in that sense.
Yeah, yeah. I go to cities. I have no problem getting Uber. I don't, yeah, I'll go to a city where I'm covering something like a state tournament. There's 8, 10 Ubers available. Who wants to come get me? Help me out. So and it's relatively cheap too. It's usually cheaper than the private taxis.
There you go. There you go. Yeah.
Yep.
And do you have children too?
Yep. My stepson's 17. He's gonna be a senior next year. And I have a daughter that's 9. So they just finished school up this week.
So would you say that having nystagmus and having children, do you think that nystagmus affects that at all?
From the aspect of I can't necessarily maybe bring them to certain places that I like to, like say if my wife's working, she can't get it off, they need to go to a Christmas concert. I got to find a way to get them to the Christmas concert and myself to the Christmas concert, stuff like that. Trying to get them involved in stuff as much as possible. We're trying to do. We've tried some things here and there. Some things have worked, some have not. So I just want to give them the best advantage I can to get them involved in things outside here, because we have to drive to everywhere we need to do.
Mm-hmm.
There's no playground walking distance. There's no school walking distance. There's not a store in a walking distance. So it's every time you got to drive somewhere to do something. We try to plan out ahead as much as possible and go from there and see what they're interested in and try to do the best we can to accommodate that.
Let's say Tesla ever gets to fully self-driving, which I think they're pretty much at right now. But like, let's say they're pretty proven and they have like a good track record of it. Is that something that you would ever consider?
Yes, definitely. I don't know my wife would allow me to do it, but but you got to get a license. I don't know what the license.
I guess there's still other things. Yeah, you'd have to.
You have to get a license to. If you can't drive, would you be allowed to drive in a Tesla, the self-drive car? So we're getting on the right path here, but I don't know if we're quite there yet. Will it be in our lifetimes? It might be. I'm hoping.
I think it will be. I really think it will be, but I don't know anything. That's just hope. So, okay. So how? Like the nystagmus in your childhood, how did that affect your childhood? How did you find out about it? Like what were your parents' reactions?
Well, I don't know if my parents really, I think I've kind of mentioned a couple of times, I wasn't really diagnosed officially with it until I was in my early 20s. And that came about because there's a doctor at the University of Vermont that was doing a study on my family, because I have a cousin that has nystagmus, but he had it so bad he had migraines. So they did a study on the effects of that with migraines. So being part of the family lineage, we took some blood tests, the family tree stuff and all that. And then I went to actually see him on my own, and he diagnosed me with mild nystagmus. It's enough to make it bothersome. But I remember I had to get glasses when I was in kindergarten. It was just a matter of I had bad eyes. That I don't know if my parents even knew, or the doctors even let them know that I had nystagmus, or to detect that. But I had to wear glasses in kindergarten. Hated them, threw them across the room. Eventually got used to them. And they were Coke bottle ones throughout the 80s, So always had to sit in the front of the room a lot. And I was a fairly shy kid when I was younger, so I was afraid to tell the teacher I couldn't see the board. I have to sit in the front. Sometimes I didn't say anything, sat in the back, and maybe my grades would suffer a little bit, not too much. But you make your own accommodations. Some of the teachers probably knew as I got older about my situation. It was a private matter, whatever. And I had, the circle of friends that knew about it, not necessarily the status, but my poor vision. So
it's hard for me to imagine a childhood, or at least a high school experience, where I wasn't aware that I had something called nystagmus, because to me it played such a big role in my childhood and my social activities and just my interactions with people. So
right, I was pretty much left to live an as normal life as possible. Plus, I told you before, I actually played trombone too. I played trombone throughout college. Could read sheet music and all that, but I had to adjust the stand a certain way so I could see it.
Mm-hmm.
And then you memorize music too, so you can play stuff and memorize it. Did marching band, played through jazz band throughout college. I was an almost music minor and all that. So I despite that, I was able to learn stuff and trying to adapt the way I had to see things. So, did a lot of, you do a lot of practicing. It's a lot of music is using your ears. So, if I have a deficiency in seeing, your hearing certainly is picked up a little bit. And I'm not perfect pitch, but I'm pretty darn close from a musical standpoint. And I can read rhythms, I can read music, I know scales, I know keys, and it's a whole other language.
So I think with nystagmus, there's a couple main factors the way I look at it, right? So the first thing is you have the poor vision, and you can't see very well. But then the second thing, which this is where I had a difficult time, was that it can look a little, funny having the eyes move around, or me having my null point and having to move my head and, with ways that other people don't do. That's the part where I really struggled with. I never really had an issue with like the lack of the vision, like nobody said anything about it, but aesthetically the way that the nystagmus made me look, I struggled a lot with that. So did you deal with that at all?
Not much. I don't recall anything other than I only noticed and I know my null point as I learned about null points literally in my mid-20s, reading when the internet first got underway, and I was reading stuff on the old Nystagmus network forums that I don't think are even up anymore. That's kind of found out about other people about it was through forums, and then null points and doing research that the inner part of my left eye is where my null point is. And then I know one time I was covering a game where I had the window closed. It was cold, like 20 degrees. So you close the window, and I see the reflection of myself in the mirror, and my head's tilted to the right all the time. And if I tilted it straight, I couldn't see very well. So that's where I kind of learned. And I'd see some pictures of myself, while I was tilting to the right a little bit. And I guess that's the way I look when I have to look at things. And I kind of notice it more often now than I did before. I always remember when I was younger, my parents yelling at me, straighten up your head. They didn't know.
Right.
I didn't know, but it's the way my body kind of reacted to trying to see, tilting my head to the right. And I remember my parents always saying my head was tilted, and they're always yelling at me for it. So I've confronted them about that, but I just remember that from when I was younger.
That's so interesting that you made it pretty much your whole childhood without people mentioning the head tilt or the null point, except for your parents.
Yeah, it's no, my parents know that they know the null point. They know that they had the head tilt. So,
right. Well, they didn't know what caused the head tilt, but they knew that you had a head tilt.
Exactly. Yeah. They didn't know the cause. And I went to some other specialists, and I don't know if nystagmus was even mentioned, but it was from doctor to doctor, from childhood through teenage years to early adulthood. It's always something you just had to live with. You do the best you can with the prescription and try to get as close as possible. Now, I did get a little adjustment with my prescription. I had an old doctor that pretty much wanted me to. He made one last adjustment with my prescription where I could try to see a little better from a distance, and actually I can a little bit. But now when I read, I used to have to read with my glasses on. Now I don't even read with my glasses on. So it's blurry with my glasses because the magnification is so high. So I read books and newspapers. Sometimes not so much computers because of the screen, but when I'm reading print, I take my glasses off when I read now.
Interesting.
It's blurry. I perfect, not say perfect vision, but it's a lot clearer without my glasses when I read, just because of the high magnification of my prescription.
Huh. Okay. Yeah, I've never
and
heard
a lot
of that.
Times, and a lot of times, when I'm covering a football game with my field glasses, I'll have my glasses up like this, and then I'm doing the field glasses, doing play-by-play, and then I'll just kind of do the little trick and boop, like that, put my glasses down so I can read something from a near distance or whatever. So I'm like, glasses are up and down like this all the time during a game. So.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, cool. So yeah, that's still interesting because to me, the way that I found out about my null point in my head movements and everything was from people around me. They would always, it would not always, like it's always like a select few amount of people, but they seem to make the most noise about it. Like 99% of the people can be cool, and then you could have 1% of the people who are just obnoxious about it. That was my experience. So that's how I found out that my eyes were like different, or how I found out that my head moved and stuff. I would like what you said. I would see the pictures, and I'd be like, "Yeah, well, why is my head always looking like that in the pictures? I don't do that on purpose, but it always looks like that." So that would bother me. But I've never. It's interesting, yeah. So you didn't have students or peers say anything. It was pretty much just your parents when it came time to take pictures.
It's something I would notice. They wouldn't mention anything. I would notice it. So unless they're just used to me having my head tilted or maybe back a little bit like this, my head used to be kind of back a little bit like that too. So
Yeah.
I guess there's more of awareness now of, you know, I don't get a lot of pictures taken of me really. So it is what it is now. But
So on a scale of 1 to 10, how much would you say the nystagmus really affects you?
I have it pretty under control. I know I've done this little trick for a few weeks now. I try to put my camera phone next to my eye so I can see it. Now, some days I can't see it, some days I can. From a driving standpoint, it's a 10 because I can't able to drive. But overall, my it's 5 or 6 maybe. Just I can do everything else really. I don't think I could fix. I can't do a lot of fine point stuff. Like I can sew a button. It's kind of difficult. I learned how to sew buttons. If I had to sew a button on a shirt, sewing machines kind of scared me in home economics, junior high. But a lot of the fine point stuff, I don't think I could fix a car. Some of the finer things. My motor skills are okay. They're not great, but some balance issues here and there. Not running into doors anymore, but I do run into things a little bit. I kind of scrape against things. I don't run into things.
And you did. I think you told me on the phone you did play football in high school, correct?
Yes, I did.
Without glasses.
Without glasses, because the first game I didn't like it because they fogged up all the time.
Right.
And at the time, you couldn't get prescription sports glasses for my prescription. So I just played without glasses. You don't need to read anything but the scoreboard. So I was a center, and I actually long snapped on punts and short snapped on field goals too. So I learned to do that. Did that for 4 years. It just takes practice, So,
yeah. So to any parents who think that your child might not be able to play football or sports because of the nystagmus, I mean, this is I also played football by the way too. So.
Yeah, and I played baseball up until 12 or 13. My eyes were fine with the smaller little league fields, but once we got to the 12 and 13 playing on the high school fields, I wasn't good enough to play infield. I played infield in Little League, but I wasn't good enough to play infield on the upper levels, and I couldn't play outfield because I couldn't see the ball literally leave the pitcher's hand and off the bat when it got hit. I couldn't see it. And I probably shouldn't have played my last couple of years, and I did. I love baseball so much. I probably should have done track and field, like shot put or discus or something, but that's the one thing I regret, but I was able to play baseball as far as I could till I physically couldn't anymore. So
yeah, and I was never able to play it. I'm terrible at baseball.
Yeah, I can throw a baseball and catch a baseball fine.
Mm-hmm.
So I haven't done it in a while. It'd probably take a little bit to get used to it, but I was strong enough, physically able enough to do it. I did rollerblade a little bit. I wasn't great. I could rollerblade a little bit. Strengthen my legs, strengthen your balance. So I'm not great at basketball. You do it, so no one's asking you if you can't. I can see the ball, I can see the hoop.
Right. So I'm curious about this. With my nystagmus, if I'm meeting somebody new, if I'm talking to somebody who hasn't, who doesn't know about my eyes, sometimes my eyes will just start going crazy out of nowhere. They'll just start, moving left and right. And sometimes I struggle, like, when should I say something? I feel like there's an elephant in the room and I should mention it just so that they're not wondering what's going on here. Do you ever have to tell people like about your eyes so they don't think that you're high or something? Because that's what happens. Like, police officers check for nystagmus when they pull people over, because people who are high, will have it. So how do you approach something like that?
I've never really had that experience without people looking in my eyes. The only thing is, like in high school, I know people would want to take my glasses and look through them, and they feel like they were high just looking through my glasses. But other than that, I never really had that experience much at all. You can mildly see it, but I know it affects it, and it hasn't happened in a while. But I know stress can make it so where I can actually feel them shake.
Right.
I feel it shake. I know when I'm either not feeling well or stressed out. When I can feel my eyes actually tremor, I know it's really bad. So you just gotta take it easy, calm down, and just kind of get in a right mental state of mind. to kind of calm it down a little bit.
Do you do any like breathing exercises or anything like that?
I like to close my eyes a little
Yeah.
bit, just calm down. Um, I know it even for anybody looking at a screen a lot to take breaks. So I got to take breaks. Know when to take breaks, so you're not burning yourself out. And I've done that before, burn myself out where I just can't look at anything. I can't look at people. I just can't look at anything. So you got to pace yourself. You got to pace yourself.
Yeah, I relate to that. Yeah, sometimes it just gets so bad, and then you got to take a break from anything. But yeah, okay. Well, do you have anything that we haven't hit on that you think we should talk about?
Well, reason I like to come on here and I don't get a platform out to talk about my situation and all that, and I'm glad I kind of stumbled on your podcast is, any encouragement for any parents that have kids with nystagmus that they can do whatever they want to do. Just treat life as normal. If they need help getting somewhere, get them somewhere. And then there's ways to adjust. And I know I was mentioning to you that there's, at least in my business, technology has helped out tremendously. Use the technologies out there to help improve your life. I know we mentioned I think you mentioned other podcasts, taking pictures of a fast food menu. I just learned that life hack like a month ago. Why have I done this for years? And it's helped out tremendously too. So, use this technology to your advantage. You can do whatever you want. Know your limitations, but don't limit yourself. If there's something you want to do, try to work it out. There's ways through technology to help you out these days where there wasn't 25, 30 years ago. So that's what I would encourage. Anybody with nystagmus, try to find your comfort zone there. If you have to live in a city, live in a city. You can, there's no one says you can't live. There's no one that says you can't live where you want to live. So, you just got to figure out the proper ways to adjust, get us a good support staff, and you'll be just fine.
Mm-hmm. And just to add to that, I like what you said in terms of the parents putting limitations on their children. It's so important not to put limitations on them. Let them figure out for themselves what they can and what they can't do, what they're comfortable with. Mm-hmm. You should. I think it's very important to let them figure it, because you could put limitations on their child that don't need to be there. I've seen it all the time where parents will tell their kids that they can and can't do things because of their eyes or something like that. And it's like, well, they actually can do it. You just haven't given them the opportunity to try and do it, but you'd be surprised what we can actually do. So that's what I would add to that.
Yep. I've seen too many people with other disabilities, I guess, not get to their full potential. And I've seen some people that are completely healthy that don't get their full potential either. So
yeah,
it's, I'm doing I'm kind of happy where I am right now in life, and just keep doing what I'm doing. I'm teaching a class in sports broadcasting at a local college too, so I picked up that side gig last semester. So just keep
busy
plugging
man.
Along.
You're doing a lot of stuff.
Yeah. Busy stuff. Yes. Yep.
All right, Chris. Well, I appreciate you coming on and talking to me, man.
Thank you.
Of course. And anybody who's listening, I appreciate you listening. If you made it this far, appreciate you guys. And this has been episode 17.